Hey everyone, welcome to the max damage build for my Behemoth team. Now, I think this is probably the highest I could do with what I have. I'm not sure whether there's maybe other alternatives to get it a little bit higher, but I got it as close as I could with what I have. So let's go over the skills and with the units and what they're here for, right? So first off, we've got Aevati, who is buffing crit damage and crit chance, and that will splash on from Illya to the Bolina. This is not relevant for the first few turns because, or the first few rounds, because because of the positioning and the boss moving, the buff won't last long enough for the first 3 rounds because all the units are live, right? And it's only 9 turns and 10 units taking actions. But it will come into play later, and I'll explain why when I explain those mechanics. Then we've got T. Illya, who does the overcap crit damage buff, right, which is this one. And then we have Zhaowu here, who buffs Nay and splashes onto Charlissa and Bolina. Similar with Nay, even though this targeting looks like it's targeting Franca, she actually targets herself because of one of her abilities, which makes her she uses herself as the main target, right? And therefore both of these 2 buffs will be splashing on both of the DPS. And then Franca will buff Fleur to give the attack buff to Bolina. Fleur will then do crit damage buff to both Charlissa and Bolina. And then Charlissa will attack and do some chip damage, and Maybelle will do her big single target buff to Bolina, and that will, she'll do a big chunk of damage, right? Now, because the boss has a lot of health, it takes 4 rounds for this to complete. Now, to explain some of the more advanced mechanics here now, which is triggering the EX abilities of both Aevati and Zhaowu and Nay, for like the big damage boosts here. Now with Aevati, her EX triggers by having her health below 50%, right? So I gave her a little bit of HP. They're not max HP cores. It's like a mix. It's like 1 unleveled one and 1 leveled HP core to get it to roughly around this. And basically after the 3rd attack from the boss, on the 4th round, she will be below 50%, and then she will do her buff, right? Both her normal buff and EX, and splash on, through Illya. Then Illya will attack, and the boss will attack, right? And because of the attack pattern of the boss, it's going to splash all these squares, right? Which means it's going to hit both Aevati and Maybelle. This will kill all 3 of these units, right? Which means there's 1 less unit moving during the next few turns after that, right? Because Maybelle is dead, and that means she's not going to eat up one turn duration from Aevati's buffs. This will leave Aevati's buffs with 1 turn left when Bolina attacks on the final attack to do the overkill damage. That's why I want to sacrifice Maybelle, and the reason I can do that is because her buff lasts 12 turns, and even though there's 2 units also being moved before her, her dying means that her previous buff lasts long enough for Bolina to have it for 1 turn. Similarly with Zhaowu, her EX only lasts for 6 turns, but it will last long enough because of how many units are in between, right? Because Maybelle will be dead, and therefore only 5 units will move in between. Now, with all 3 of these units dead, technically I only need 2 of them dead, but obviously I wanted Maybelle dead for the durations of the other buffs. But with 2+ units dead, Zhaowu and Nay will both activate their EX abilities. They're at the same condition, and Zhaowu will buff crit damage, while Nay will debuff the boss with a bit more dodge damage reduction, or she will lower it a little bit more, right? 5% more. And then everything else is pretty much the same. Basically, Charlissa will get the boss down extremely low. It'll be like roughly about 3k left, very close to the end. I could tweak the attack a little bit more. Basically, I would have to give Illya a little bit more attack to tweak it so that the boss will, it's as close to dead as possible. But I couldn't be bothered to fine tune it any further, so I just left it alone. It's a very minor difference with the score at that point, anyway. And then, of course, Bolina would then do a big overkill attack with all of these buffs active. So let's start the battle, and then you can see it in action. I'll just point out some of the more important stuff. I'll leave it on ×4. Okay, a bit of chip damage here, and then Bolina will do a big attack. So this will rinse and repeat for a couple of turns, and there would be much like variation from these turns, right? There's nothing important happens until really the 4th round. Okay, now you can see here, the boss hits Aevati down to 4k with, because her max health is 14k, that is below her 50% mark, and that's good timing because I want her to buff on the 4th round, right? Because this is going to be the final round. Okay, now we've got the buff, and now the boss is going to take out all 3 of these units, and then the rest is the same, but they're doing their EX abilities as well. And now Charlissa will get it down very close, yeah, roughly 3k, and then Bolina's big hit. And that is the run. So we've got a pretty good turn bonus, and yeah, that's damage score. And there's very little RNG. There's like a little bit of RNG, as you can see here. There's like a slight variation here, but for the most part, it will get roughly this score. And yeah, it's like 100% consistent as long as you tweak the attacks. So some of the gear choices are a little bit different here. Now, Bolina is on the standard like max damage attack, flat attack and attack %. But I did have to adjust some of the health to make sure that the units survive long enough. First off, we have Maybelle. So I gave her a couple of cores, right, to make sure that she lasts long enough until the final round. Because otherwise, she'll die like 1st or 2nd round if you don't give her any cores. And Charlissa, I reduced her attack a little bit. So you can see here, I played around with different combinations of cores, and this is like the best one I could come up with to get it as close as possible. Then I fine-tuned the damage a little bit more using Illya to do, because she does like a light amount of chip damage, but it's good because her damage rate variation is not like, or her scaling is not too high, right? In comparison to giving a bit more attack to Charlissa, it's very risky, and I could quite easily overcap her damage. But if I make Charlissa lower enough, or at least close enough to finish off the boss, and then I gave a bit more attack to Illya to reduce that gap even further, it's a lot easier to do it that way. And I probably could play around with a little bit more. I think if she is about 1600 attack, it's probably a bit more ideal, or maybe even a little bit more. But it's a little bit risky, and it's not really worth the risk. I mean, it's close enough as is, so I just left it alone. And also, Aevati also had some extra cores here. So she is on like this combination, and that was enough to get her to 50%. I mean, she could probably have a little bit less. You can play around with the numbers if you really wanted it to, if you're trying to like replicate this strat. But this was fine enough. Just keep it like roughly around this amount of HP, not too much lower than this, right? And she'll be fine, right? Alright, so that is it for this boss. I'm probably not going to do any more attempts. I've already spent quite a bit of time like testing it out, and I'll probably be busy over the next few days, so I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.